The illusion of failure. On the seeker's path, one of the greatest traps the mind creates is the feeling that nothing ever works out. This sensation, so common and seemingly so real, is in fact an illusion born from limited perception. If this truth resonates, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, so more seekers can awaken to it. In Hermeticism, this illusion arises from forgetting the very first principle: the all is mind. The universe we see outside is only a reflection of what we carry within. When someone convinces themselves that failure is constant, they are only reinforcing a mental pattern that feeds itself. Life begins to be filtered through this belief. Small setbacks are magnified, partial successes are dismissed, and the subconscious organizes experiences to confirm the central thought: nothing ever works for me. What seems like objective truth is actually a subjective reality projected by the mind. Hermetic wisdom teaches us about the illusory nature of failure. What we call mistakes or defeats are never truly endings. They are transitional stages in the flow of cause and effect that governs creation. A mind trapped by fear and doubt interprets life as hostile, while a mind awakened to the all sees that every experience, even painful ones, carries the seed of a greater purpose. This illusion also grows from the habit of measuring life's value by immediate results. The seeker who forgets the universal rhythm feels frustrated when the harvest doesn't appear at the time they expected. But the principle of rhythm teaches that everything has its cycle: planting, waiting, blossoming, and reaping. To say nothing works is often to judge a process still unfolding as if it were the final outcome. Failure, then, is not an objective reality, but a subjective interpretation of the mind. Two individuals can face the same situation. One calls defeat, the other calls it a lesson. What makes the difference is not the event itself, but the level of consciousness through which it is perceived. The Hermetic student learns to observe without attachment, recognizing that every apparent obstacle is also an opportunity for inner transmutation. To overcome the illusion of failure is to remember your own creative nature. If the all is mind, then every limit is only a crystallized thought, and every defeat is only a story we tell ourselves. By dissolving that story, we make space to realize that success and fulfillment are already present within us, waiting only for the moment to manifest in visible form. The law of vibration. Everything in the universe moves, vibrates, and flows. Nothing is truly still. Not matter, not energy, not even thought. This Hermetic truth reveals that our inner state of vibration directly shapes the reality we experience. When a person lives in doubt, sadness, or fear, their vibration lowers. That vibration acts like a magnet, drawing in circumstances, people, and experiences that match it. It is not punishment, but resonance. The universe simply mirrors the frequency we emit, just as a string will echo the note of another string vibrating nearby. Hermeticism teaches that the way out of this cycle is not to fight external conditions, but to shift the inner frequency. When the mind is tuned to gratitude, confidence, and certainty, reality aligns itself with opportunities that match this new vibration. Suddenly, what seemed impossible begins to unfold naturally, not because the outer world has changed by chance, but because the seeker has changed within. The illusion that nothing ever works often arises when someone tries to change their external life without touching their inner vibration. They take action while still rooted in fear, and their results reflect that hidden state. True transformation begins when the seeker understands that thoughts, emotions, and even subtle attitudes are forms of vibration, shaping destiny before action even begins. Consider this. Two people can attempt the same goal. One does it with a vibration of despair, the other with a vibration of faith. The same external effort produces completely different outcomes, not because of luck, but because vibration precedes form. The Hermetic student learns to cultivate inner harmony before seeking outer results, knowing that success is a natural echo of aligned vibration. To master the principle of vibration is to master the art of tuning yourself like an instrument. When you resonate with the frequency of abundance, opportunities arrive. When you align with love, connection flows. When you embody certainty, obstacles dissolve. The universe does not resist, it reflects. The principle of correspondence. One of the most profound Hermetic truths is the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. This principle reveals that the external world is not separate from the internal one, but a reflection of it. What appears as failure or chaos in life often mirrors hidden disharmony within the mind and spirit. When someone feels that nothing works out, it is rarely because the universe is against them. Rather, their inner state, shaped by doubts, fears, or unresolved beliefs, projects itself outwardly. The external circumstances become a living mirror of the inner condition. To see only the outside as the problem is to miss the source. The Hermetic student is called to look within, not to blame the world, but to discover the seed of transformation in their own consciousness. This correspondence is not meant to induce guilt, but awareness. If reality mirrors the inner state, then every negative reflection is also an invitation to align more deeply with truth. The frustrations we experience can serve as signals, pointing to areas of the psyche that need healing, clarity, or new understanding. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the Hermetic path teaches us to ask, "What inside me is being reflected right now?" The universe is a vast interplay of levels, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. What occurs in one inevitably resonates in the others. A restless mind can manifest as turmoil in relationships or stagnation in opportunities. A heart filled with certainty and peace, however, radiates outward, shaping experiences that echo harmony. Correspondence teaches us that mastery is not about forcing the external world into submission, but about cultivating an inner order so strong that the outer world has no choice but to respond in kind. Life ceases to feel random when we realize it is always reflecting back the vibrations, beliefs, and attitudes we hold within. Thus, when nothing seems to work, the key is not to fight against the mirror, but to change the image we project into it. Aligning the inner state with clarity, faith, and harmony naturally transforms the outer reality, for the universe is designed to echo the pattern of the mind and soul. The principle of polarity. The Hermetic principle of polarity teaches that everything exists in pairs of opposites: light and dark, hot and cold, beginning and end, success and failure. These opposites are not separate realities, but two extremes of the same continuum. To say nothing works out for me is often to stand at one extreme of this polarity and forget that the other end exists within the same line of experience. Failure and success are not absolute states. They are points on the same spectrum, separated only by degrees. Just as cold can be gradually transformed into heat by shifting vibration, so too can apparent failure be transmuted into success by shifting consciousness. When someone feels trapped in endless frustration, Hermeticism reminds them that they are not stuck in an unchangeable destiny. They are simply positioned on one pole of an experience and have the power to move toward the other. This principle dismantles the illusion that life is divided into rigid categories of winners and losers. The seeker who says, "I always fail," is identifying with one pole and ignoring the law of transformation that allows movement along the spectrum. Recognizing polarity means understanding that despair already contains the seed of hope, and defeat already hides the potential for victory. In practice, this means that moments when nothing works are not signs of eternal failure but invitations to shift vibration and perspective. The same energy that now feels like limitation can be transmuted into freedom. The same situation that feels like loss can unfold as the foundation for growth. What changes is not the essence of reality, but the degree and direction of our alignment with it. Polarity also teaches patience. Just as night turns into day, the pole of stagnation will inevitably swing toward progress if the seeker aligns with the laws of rhythm and vibration. To despair is to freeze the mind at one pole. To awaken is to realize that transformation is not only possible, but natural. Thus, the feeling of nothing ever works for me is not a final truth. It is simply a temporary immersion at one pole of life's spectrum. By applying awareness and transmutation, the seeker begins to move toward the other side, where success, flow, and alignment await. The principle of rhythm. The Hermetic principle of rhythm teaches that everything in the universe flows in cycles. Tides rise and fall, seasons change, and even our emotions move like waves. Nothing stays fixed forever. All things swing back and forth between poles. When someone feels nothing ever works for me, they are often caught in a downward swing of the pendulum and mistake a temporary phase for a permanent state. This principle reveals that failure and frustration are not static realities but part of a rhythmic movement. Just as night inevitably gives way to day, times of difficulty eventually flow into times of progress. The seeker who identifies too strongly with the downward swing begins to believe that life is permanently against them, when in truth, they are simply experiencing one side of a universal cycle. The key to mastery is learning to rise above the automatic pull of rhythm. The Hermetic student does not deny the ebb and flow, but learns to remain centered while the pendulum swings. When difficulties arise, they no longer panic or fall into despair. Instead, they remember that every descent carries within it the seed of an ascent, and every contraction prepares the way for expansion. Saying nothing works out is often the result of forgetting this law. We want the harvest without respecting the seasons of planting and waiting. We expect constant growth without acknowledging the pauses that allow regeneration. Rhythm shows us that setbacks are not punishments, but essential phases of the greater movement of life. By aligning with this principle, the seeker begins to face challenges with patience and perspective. Instead of declaring defeat when the pendulum swings back, they hold steady, knowing that the motion will inevitably return toward success. This understanding brings resilience. Frustration loses its power because it is no longer seen as eternal, but as part of the natural rhythm of existence. Thus, the Hermetic path transforms the feeling of nothing ever works into a deeper awareness. What seems like failure is only a passing phase of the universal dance. To trust the rhythm is to remember that every low tide carries within it the promise of the next rising wave. The principle of cause and effect. The Hermetic principle of cause and effect teaches that nothing in the universe happens by chance. Every event, condition, and circumstance is the result of a chain of causes, whether visible or hidden. When someone feels nothing ever works out for me, they are experiencing effects that arise from causes, many of which lie deep within their own mental and emotional patterns. To the unawakened mind, this may feel like bad luck or an unfair universe, but Hermetic wisdom reveals that what we call luck is only the meeting of causes we do not yet perceive. The subconscious mind, filled with beliefs, fears, and unresolved impressions, continuously generates causes that shape outer reality. If those inner causes are aligned with doubt, self-sabotage, or a belief in failure, the effects will naturally echo those states. Understanding this principle shifts the question. Instead of asking, "Why does nothing work for me?" the seeker begins to ask, "What causes am I setting into motion, consciously or unconsciously, that produce these effects?" This shift of awareness transforms victimhood into empowerment. For if causes are mental, then by changing our inner state, we inevitably alter the effects that manifest in our lives. Hermeticism teaches that higher consciousness does not wait passively for life to change. The student learns to generate causes, deliberately, cultivating thoughts of certainty, taking actions aligned with inner truth, and holding firm to elevated states of vibration. In time, these new causes dissolve the old patterns of frustration and create effects that reflect clarity, abundance, and flow. The sensation of nothing ever works out often arises when we are blind to the chain of causes we ourselves are sustaining. Every complaint reinforces the cause of limitation. Every doubt plants the seed for another delay. But every affirmation of certainty, every act of faith, and every step taken in alignment with universal law sets in motion new currents that eventually reshape destiny. To live by cause and effect is to recognize that life is not happening to us but through us. Each experience is the echo of what has been set in motion, and each present moment holds the power to begin a new chain. Thus, the seeker who feels trapped in failure is not doomed. They are simply called to become conscious of their causes and to choose them with wisdom and intention. The principle of gender. The Hermetic principle of gender teaches that everything in the universe contains both masculine and feminine qualities. These are not about biological sex, but about universal forces. The masculine expresses activity, direction, and will. The feminine expresses receptivity, imagination, and gestation. Creation only happens when these two principles work in harmony. When someone feels nothing ever works out for me, it is often because there is an imbalance between these two forces within their inner world. Some lie trapped in the masculine without balance, always pushing, forcing, and taking action, without allowing time for ideas to mature or intuition to guide them. Others remain fixed in the feminine, dreaming, visualizing, and waiting passively, but never moving into decisive action. In both cases, the creative process is interrupted and the results never fully manifest. Failure, in this sense, is not evidence that the universe is against us, but that our inner forces are out of harmony. The Hermetic path teaches that the feminine principle must first receive and conceive the vision, the mental image, the vibration of what is desired. Then, the masculine principle must act to give form to that vision, applying will and effort in alignment with the inner seed. When one pole is neglected, the cycle of creation remains incomplete, and the seeker concludes that nothing works. The I principle of gender also shows us that manifestation has its natural time. The feminine requires incubation, a period of invisible gestation before the visible birth of results. When impatience dominates, the seeker may abandon the process too soon, declaring failure when, in truth, the creation was still forming in the unseen. To master this principle is to recognize the dance between thought and action, between inner conception and outer expression. It means honoring the feminine by cultivating inner clarity, certainty, and vision, and honoring the masculine by acting with confidence, persistence, and alignment. When both are united, the universe cannot resist bringing forth the result. For creation is the inevitable fruit of balanced polarity. Thus, the feeling that nothing works for me dissolves when we see that the failure was never permanent, but only the absence of balance. By restoring harmony between the inner feminine and masculine, the seeker discovers the natural power to bring forth what once seemed impossible. The trap of expectation. One of the most subtle obstacles on the spiritual path is the trap of expectation. When someone feels nothing ever works for me, it is often not because life has denied them, but because their expectations have created rigid conditions for how and when things should manifest. In Hermeticism, this is seen as a misunderstanding of the laws that govern rhythm, vibration, and correspondence. Expectation tries to control the timing and the form of results. The seeker plants a seed and then demands that it bloom immediately, in exactly the way they imagine. When life unfolds differently or takes longer, the mind quickly labels the process as failure. But Hermetic wisdom reminds us that creation operates through invisible stages. The harvest never appears the day after planting. It requires trust in unseen cycles. The problem with expectation is that it creates inner tension. Instead of allowing the feminine principle of receptivity to nurture the process, the mind clings to images of how reality should be. This resistance lowers vibration and disrupts the harmony necessary for manifestation. The seeker begins to interpret every delay as proof that nothing works, when in truth the universe is simply aligning causes and conditions in its own perfect rhythm. Expectation is also a way of doubting the intelligence of the all. It assumes that we know the best path and time for everything, while forgetting that the universal mind operates from a perspective far greater than our limited view. What feels like a denial may actually be protection, redirection, or preparation for something more aligned than we could imagine. The Hermetic path calls for trust instead of rigid expectation. Trust recognizes that once the seed is planted, its unfolding is inevitable if we maintain inner alignment. Trust does not demand that life obey our calendar but flows with rhythm, knowing that what belongs to us cannot be lost. Thus, the feeling of nothing works for me is often not the truth but the frustration of unmet expectations. By releasing control and trusting universal law, the seeker discovers that life was never withholding. It was always delivering, but in its own wise and perfect timing. The mental transmutation. At the heart of Hermetic practice lies the art of transmutation, the ability to transform one mental state into another. The principle of mentalism declares that all is mind, and therefore every experience of failure, stagnation, or frustration is first born in thought. To say nothing ever works for me is to crystallize a mental state that, unless transmuted, will continue to project the same reality outward. Mental transmutation begins with recognition. The seeker must first see that feelings of defeat are not absolute truths but states of consciousness. They are vibrations that can be shifted, not prisons to be endured. Just as lead can be transformed into gold in alchemy, so despair can be transformed into confidence, and doubt into certainty by the deliberate work of the mind. This practice is not about denying difficulties or pretending problems do not exist. It is about shifting the inner lens through which they are seen. When the mind declares nothing works, the Hermetic student pauses and reorients. What vibration am I feeding? What inner story am I strengthening? The very act of observing this pattern weakens its hold and opens the possibility of transformation. Through discipline, the seeker learns to raise vibration consciously, replacing thoughts of limitation with thoughts of power, cultivating emotions of gratitude instead of resentment, and choosing certainty instead of doubt are all acts of transmutation. Over time, this inner work dissolves the repeating cycles of frustration and creates a new current of experiences aligned with higher states of being. The secret is that failure and success are not external verdicts. They are inner states mirrored by outer circumstances. To change the state is to change the mirror. Mental transmutation is therefore the antidote to the illusion of perpetual defeat. It teaches that no matter how dark the moment appears, the mind holds the power to shift, to ascend, and to create a new pattern of reality. Thus, the Hermetic path shows that the statement, "Nothing ever works for me," is not destiny, but an invitation. It calls the seeker to practice the great work of alchemy, not with metals but with thoughts and emotions, transforming the lead of limitation into the gold of mastery. The reconnection with the all. At the deepest level, the feeling that nothing ever works for me is born from a sense of separation, from the world, from others, and ultimately from the source itself. Hermeticism reminds us that this separation is an illusion. The principle of mentalism declares that the mind of the all permeates everything, and we are extensions of that infinite intelligence. To believe in permanent failure is to forget our true nature. When the seeker feels abandoned by life, they are experiencing the shadow of disconnection. The mind interprets obstacles as rejection, and the heart feels isolated from the universal flow. Yet the truth is that the all never withdraws. It is our perception that closes the channel. Just as clouds can obscure the sun without extinguishing, limiting thoughts obscure the presence of the source without ever diminishing its light. Reconnection begins with remembrance. The seeker recalls that they are not a separate fragment struggling alone, but a spark of the universal fire. This recognition dissolves the narrative of defeat, for how could the universe itself fail within its own creation? What once appeared as random frustration is seen instead as guidance, refinement, and the mysterious movement of a greater order. The Hermetic path leads us back to unity. By aligning with vibration, rhythm, polarity, and all the universal laws, the seeker remembers that life is not against them but expressing itself through them. In this state, the phrase "nothing works for me" loses all power, replaced by the certainty that everything unfolds for me, through me, and as me. True success, then, is not about forcing external victories but about remembering the eternal connection with the all. From this state, action flows naturally, synchronicities align, and life reveals its hidden harmony. The seeker no longer waits for proof from the outside world. They know within that they are part of the infinite, and that realization is the seed of every manifestation. If these words spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and leave a like, so this wisdom can reach more seekers on the path. Remember, you are not separated from the universe. You are the universe, awakening within itself.